Hello everyone and welcome. And today I'm here with Michael Smith in front of what was St. Conleth's Reformatory School in Daingean in County Offaly. And Michael is here with me because Michael knows what went on in there because he spent almost 2 years in there. And first of all, Michael, your book is a lovely book.
Thank you.
On the Mitch.
Thank you.
And we'll talk later about how where the title came from. But first of all, we want to start at the beginning. You were brought up in Finglas in Dublin, 1950s, 1960s, and your book is really a social comedy. It's a lovely book.
Thank you.
All the wonderful, colourful characters who were out at that time.
Indeed, yeah.
Even going to the pawnbrokers in a life of poverty, everybody was poor.
That's right.
All these wonderful tales you have in there. It's a lovely book to read. And you also describe how your own family, your father was an alcoholic and violent.
Yes, indeed.
And abused yourself and your mother.
Yes, he was. He was a champion boxer in the army, and he was a champion woman beater. He used to beat my mother for years.
Yeah. And you often wonder, why did she take it?
Well,
and then you realise that she was in St. Joseph's in Cavan.
For 11 years.
For 11 years, beaten all constantly. So she was used to beating, and that made her so resilient. That's how she took it. Because she knew nothing else.
Yeah.
Being beaten was part of her life.
Yeah. But the reason she stayed because she had a son from before she married my father, and she looked after him, and then I was born.
Yeah.
And she stayed in Finglas, and my father went off to Canada and America where his family, he had a lady for 60 years and another lady for 60 years.
Okay.
You know, so.
So you were close to your grandfather. He was called Michael Tiger Smith.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was friends with Sean O'Casey and Brendan Behan.
Yeah, indeed.
And he was involved in the struggle for Irish independence.
Yes.
He joined the famous E Company 2nd Battalion.
Yes, he was a captain in the 2nd
Yes,
Battalion.
and he fought under Thomas MacDonagh in the 1916 in Jacob's victory. And he then was promoted to captain of 26th Battalion on the anti-treaty side.
Indeed, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, here we come to more important stuff. You were schooled in Finglas National School.
Yeah.
That was the De La Salle Religious Order.
Yes.
And that was where your sorrows and troubles began.
Yeah. At 6 years of age, I was there.
Tell us about that.
I went to De La Salle for 6 years, and I used to go on the Mitch every second year because this brother Ferdinand, who taught me a number one.
And this is where On the Mitch title came from, because every time you were abused, you took off school, you went on the Mitch.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that.
I had him every other year. I went to school every second year. But when he was in teaching me, I wouldn't go to school.
You wouldn't go to school.
So that's why I went on the Mitch. But this man was an evil bastard who abused not just me, hundreds of kids he went through and destroyed them and beat them and put them on the table.
Are you going to give us his name?
Brother Ferdinand.
Brother Ferdinand.
I met him 20 years ago. He was in Dundalk with home for the boys, and I went down and met him and confronted him, and he had no remorse. He's still a paedophile. You know?
Yeah, you have a chapter revenge in that book.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I said, I'm not going to do 20 years over you evil bastard.
You drew yourself up and you just went into yourself and you just did the best thing. You just weren't going to attack him or do anything.
Well,
there's no point. You'd served enough time on them.
I had to make up my mind I was going back to jail, and I didn't want to go back to jail. You know?
The right decision,
yeah. You know, but anyway, as I said, he had no remorse. And I said, not just for me, hundreds of boys he destroyed, you know, and he took outside the room, but he never took me outside the room. You know, and bugging me or nothing like that. You know, he would.
Beatings and batterings.
He had a leg of a chair. He used to beat us with a leg of a chair and took pleasure out of it. And he put his tongue down his lower lip and took pleasure out of beating it. He was like a sadist. He took pleasure out of beating because he wouldn't let me interfere with you.
You would kick him, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Like, but some boys weren't so tough, you know.
Okay, let's move on then. When you were on the Mitch.
Yeah.
You later found out that you were marked present at school.
Yes, indeed, never happened.
Why do you think that was?
Cover up, that was no, he was covering up, you know, that he just, it was...
Because the inspector had asked you why were you Mitchy, it would have come out.
Yeah, you know, he used to do the roll book and he never marked me, you know.
You were marked present, right.
Yeah.
And then you were sent to Daingean for 2 years, 21st of January 1964, because on the Mitch all the time you were joining gangs, criminal gangs in Dublin inner city. Yeah. And then you left school at 13.
Yeah.
And with one of these gangs you broke back into the school.
Yeah.
And you head for number one.
Number one, yeah, and did a bit of damage. And
yes, a bit of damage. What did you do, Michael?
Bad.
You ransacked his desk and you wrote graffiti all over the place.
That's indeed.
And you flooded another room somewhere with a hole.
The recreation room was flooded, and then we broke into the office, but we never robbed anything. We were accused of robbing blazers, and we never robbed anything.
Now. So again, when you were taken into court, you were all taken into court, and you were up on false charges, and you were annoyed because you were quite willing to claim what you had done. But you were accused of stealing blazers and selling them.
There was such thing, no.
And again, why was that done?
Just a cover up, I suppose, just to say that we did it. No, I just went in there for revenge.
Because if you'd been asked why you targeted classroom number 1, it would have come out again that you had been abused.
Indeed, yeah. But as I said, I had my day with this man, and a lot of my friends didn't. They died, 9 of them died from drinking drugs. I'm 44 years recovering alcoholic, and a lot of my friends died from heroin and drugs. And
you're the last man standing.
Yeah, no.
Okay. You were sentenced to Daingean for 2 years.
Yeah.
You were handcuffed to a policeman, and you were taken down here into this building.
Yeah. Sorry, I went to Malva from Kilmainham Jail. I went to Malva House for the weekend, and then a policeman took me from Malva House down to Daingean on the bus.
Handcuffed.
Handcuffed me. Went into this number 1. This is the main off here. That's the main place here. That's it.
There's the main building behind us, this yellow building. And it was a military barracks, first of all, yes, okay.
But that's the main entrance, and that's where the office, where the head Fitzgerald was named, Fitzpatrick.
Okay.
And you got interviewed by him, and then you were sent up to the recreation room. And when I went up to the recreation room with the lads, I stood I was freezing cold in the winter, and I tried to heat my hands, and this brother come over and knocked me straight out. Because I didn't.
Your first night there?
My first evening there, yeah. I didn't realise that I was blocking the heat from other kids. That's why he knocked me out. But I didn't know who he was. But I learned to know his name was Brother Cummins, the Holy One. He was in charge of the farmyard. He used to drink the blood off the sheep when he killed them. He was stone mad. He was a big man.
Okay.
He was like a...
There were friends sent to Daingean with you.
Yeah,
10 of you sent.
Yeah.
But you describe yourself as the last man standing.
Indeed, yeah.
They were all victims to drink and drugs.
Yeah, indeed. In early age. They died in early age. As I said, I'm 76 now. I'm just getting on now. I'm just lucky to be alive. As I said, a lot of my friends.
So let's talk about life inside this building.
Yeah, well...
You call it as 1 year and 2 months in hell, you describe it.
Did, yeah.
And you talk about the Berlin Wall, that's the wall that surrounded it.
That's surrounded us, yeah. That's the whole lot. And there's no way only out through the farm. If you into the farmyard, then you go out to the farmyard.
Okay.
And a lot of people tried to escape through the farm and got away.
Brought back by Gardaí.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, Father Mahan that first night took you from the policeman. You were given a set of his clothes and pyjamas, and they were clean, but they weren't new. They were Gardaí old shirts.
That's right.
Gardaí, right.
That's right.
And you were given a number 23.
23.
Tell us about your first night in the dormitory.
Well, when I was knocked out, I was in a very bad state. I was shocked, and I could fight, but this man really put me into an awful state. I was knocked out, and he was a big man. I went to bed and I was just in bits. But I got myself together the next day, and
you remember the first morning? Up at 7, washed and mass.
Yeah.
And breakfast was tea in a tin mug.
Yes.
And bread at the school bakery.
Yeah.
And after breakfast, you were all lined up in the yard.
That's right.
Right? You talk about the riots in the dining hall. Yeah. Why riots in the dining hall, Michael?
Well, the field was crap, when we...
Even though it was from the organic farm.
Yeah, it was bad, but it was slopped. It turned into stuff, and then it was turned into... And we're drinking out of tin mugs and tin plates.
And you talk about the cockroaches in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's dreadful.
And you talk about the farm work was very hard. You were working in the cow shed, the pigsty, and out on the bog of Allen there.
Mostly, yeah. But I was mostly at the tailors.
The tailors.
At the tailors 5 days a week. But Mr. Arnold didn't come in. I was sent to the farm.
Joe Arnold, you like Joe Arnold?
He was a very good man. Yeah, he was a very good man. He used to give you some cigarettes when you were stuck.
He would leave a few stubs laying around. You would make for them.
Yeah, but he was a good man. One of the only few.
And you talk about the conditions, the leaking roofs and the wooden floorboards all broken.
And it was just dreadful. But it's the whole system was the way they put it. We just...
The system was wrong.
Yeah, we weren't treated. We didn't get any education. We got nothing. We just we worked and we had to deal. We never got any. No doctors. No doctors.
Now, in the Ryan report, there are 2 particular brothers mentioned with pseudonyms. They'll be given false names to disguise them, to hide their identity. You don't do that. The book, you call them out by name.
Yeah, indeed.
Brother Cummins. You describe as vicious, unpredictable, and giving savage beatings.
And his nickname was the Holy Man.
The Holy Man. Yeah. And he interfered with the boys, especially the younger ones. And he was the one who...
beat me up the first night.
And drank sheep's blood after he killed them.
Yeah. he was.
And then there's Brother Gallagher, known as Brother Raymond in the Ryan Report. He's in charge of the laundry.
Yeah, indeed. But he
specially selected boys to work in that laundry.
Yeah. He had a special little boys he took of sweets to, and well, he was an evil bastard. He was an evil man, but he took off his glasses. He was like a German Gestapo. He was like I think he come from the north of Ireland. He's from Gallagher's Cigarettes. Gallagher's Cigarettes. It was his family.
And you said that for 17 years he was allowed to freely abuse children in Daingean. It was all covered up in Daingean.
Yeah, did.
And then he was sent to a hostel for homeless immigrants in London, and more red flags were raised about his conduct.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, he became a housemaster in the boys' dormitory in St Mary's College in Colwyn Bay in North Wales. Yeah. And he lasted 6 years there. And he was found guilty of abusing 10 boys, and he was sent to prison. Oh. And that was covered on British TV at the time. Oh. It wasn't just, it was fighting between the boys, the Dubs and the Culties.
Yeah,
you're a Dub or a Cult?
I'm a Dub anyway. I was raised in Dublin. I'm a Dub,
You're a Dub, so you're the Dub side.
There's gangs and, we fought, and Culties were big, tough men, we got stronger men than the Dubs, they were well fed, the country, but there was plenty of fights.
And there was sexual abuse from the bigger boys, but the brothers let it go.
No, they did.
Covered up.
Yeah.
Then escaping, the Gardaí brought you back. Any boys who escaped.
Yeah, they brought you. The farmers would bring them. The farmers give them a lift. They'd bring them back to the school, and they get money off the brothers for bringing the kids back.
And they'd be flogged mercilessly.
Was
there any particular brother who in charge of that flogging?
I can't really say. who was.
Okay.
But Brother Fitzpatrick, he was the head man. He was the head man here.
Their night shirts were held up, and they were given six of the best. And
I see them screaming, but
you'd hear them screaming in the dormitory. Yeah.
That's all I could say. I couldn't vouch that. I just heard the screams. That's all. But as I said, I well defended myself. Most brothers I had me way, never interfered me. I defended myself.
But other boys got it, right?
The young kids, weren't vulnerable kids, They were abused by inmates and the brothers. There was a lot of sex abuse in the toilets, in the yard.
Yes, boys, yeah.
In the yard where the handball alleys is, there's about 10.
That's down there, and
that's on the right hand side, the handball alleys, and there's about 10 toilets there. And these big tough guys used to bring these little kids in and abuse them. The inmates, they used to abuse these kids in the toilets. And you were called a fish, a new fish, and an old fish. I was a new fish, 23. There was
a new fish.
It was 1,023 people in the home at that time. So, but these big guys would take these little kids in and take them into the toilets and abuse them.
And Michael, that building there, that's what you call the recreation hall.
Where your father come to say.
That's visitors.
Once a month you're allowed to go in there.
Yes.
And you got your Sunday clothes. You got a coat, a jacket, and a thing.
Right, that was called the recreation hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the visitors, not for you.
For the visitors, yeah. What was about the parental money form?
Well, I didn't know anything about it until my mother,
Until afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the money until my mother was desperate going over to the clinic and saying she couldn't pay for this because my father was gallivanting all around the world and she was cleaning houses just to keep survive. And she used to send me £0.50 every week to help me buy cigarettes and lemonade. That's all she did, but she couldn't afford it,
It was £1 for her. That's 5 shillings more than her weekly income was, right? And you talk in that book about all the untruths that were put out.
Yeah.
For example, they said that you went home on holidays and you went home on Christmas.
I was never released. I never had a doctor. Never got seen to, I never seen a doctor.
And no medical facilities?
No, there's no.
And your medical records were not right?
No one examined me.
No one examined you?
No one ever examined me when I was in here.
And what you say is nothing can be trusted regarding these institutions and their documents. Yet the state and the academics treat them as gospel.
Indeed, yeah. Well, it's very unjust. Look, the government knew what was going on for
supported them.
Indeed.
State funded.
Consecutive governments knew what was going on. But as I said, my grandfather was great to me, got me out. I didn't spend the full time.
I'm going to ask you didn't do your full time?
No.
How did that happen? How did you get released? On the 17th of February 1965, why did you not do your full term? You were around 15 years old then. Yeah. How did that happen?
My grandfather wrote on my behalf to the government. He was involved with it.
That was Tiger.
Yeah. He wrote and then could he get his comrades.
Was Charlie Haughey not involved in getting you released?
The government, he was in charge of
Charlie Haughey, yeah.
But,
so you got out before your term?
Indeed, yeah.
And then you went to Liverpool, then London, the building sites.
Yeah.
You were drinking, you sent money home.
Yeah.
And your mother was still being harassed for the unpaid £5.10 voluntary payment.
Yeah.
Okay, Christmas 1966, Michael. You came home and you went to Belfast and you joined the Royal Irish Fusiliers.
Yeah.
A new adventure.
Yeah.
And then you left the army shortly after you were charged, and you went back to London.
I got locked up in the guardhouse in the British Army. I just had a fight with this fella, and he broke his nose.
And you splattered him.
And the MP took me and locked me up away in the guardhouse. And on a Monday morning, I went up to see the officer in command. I said, I want to go home. He says, you can't go home. I said, I'm underage. I says, I've signed my birth certificate. I'm not 17, 18. I'm underage. I said, I want to go home. So you have to get your birth certificate. So I got in touch with my grandfather. My mother got in touch with my grandfather, and he got my birth certificate, and he sent his other son up to, and my mother come up to it. But I was still locked up in the guardhouse, and then I went back, and the officer gave me an honourable discharge. That's how I got work in London.
And then you went to London, and then you came back and you settled in Finglas around 1986.
Yeah.
And you're working as a cab driver there?
Yeah.
Now, you have a chapter in this book about revenge, chapter title. Revenge on who, Michael? What was that about?
Well, Brother Ferdinand is the only man I could never forgive. And, I forgive my father for all his...
And this is going back to Finglas Primary School, the Dillon-Sal.
Yeah. But you can't forgive everybody in life, but this man was an evil man. Not just me, he destroyed, as other people did. He had no remorse. And I don't know how justice can be done with these people, He was 90 odd years of age when I confronted him, as I said. And he still tried to intimidate me, but I was well able for him. And I said, I'm not doing 20 years over you evil man, I says.
You made the right decision.
I did, yeah. But, yeah.
Right. Then, a big important day for you, 7th of May 1981. That was the day you gave up drink, and you've never drunk since.
Yeah.
And a Father Leonard Coughlin from the Capuchins in Dublin guided you through that episode.
He did and things, yeah. He was a great man. He was great comfort to me. He said, "I'm a great man. We'll get great." So we became great friends, and he was there for me. And as a cab driver, I used to get all my pennies and give it to the homeless people. They feed all the homeless in Dublin.
That's right.
And I used to give all the money.
There, yes.
So you give something back to the people, And he was a great man to me. Unfortunately, he died, but he.
You haven't touched drink since that?
44 years, no.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now tell me, Michael, you've changed your whole life around.
Well, to his point.
You're now a marathon runner.
Well, I used to be. I'm not.
You're a lifeguard.
Yeah.
You're married, son, daughter, and a grandson.
Grandson in Liverpool, yeah.
Yep.
Michael Smith the fifth. He's 25, and he lives in Liverpool.
You've turned it all around, haven't you, Michael?
To a point, yeah, to a point. But still, it's great to be here at this stage. But I don't dwell on the past, but it isn't always there,
Right. Finally, Mike, any advice to anybody out there who's still suffering all of this? What advice would you give them?
Well,
they're trying to survive as survivors.
You have to talk about it. You have to tell people. You have to talk about it. If you don't talk about it, you'll destroy. And try and get yourself into some regime of fitness of your body. And if your body is fit, your mind will help your mind. Really. Other than that, but you have to make decisions themselves.
Nobody can make them for you. You have to want to do it yourself.
You have to want to do it yourself, really. But that's the way I did, and the way things turned out okay.
You've made a remarkable turnaround, Michael. What are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
I don't know.
Because you can't believe it yourself, can you?
Yeah, it's to a point, everything. But that's life, Some people make choices, good and some bad choices, But anyway, I'm here.
And nobody can do it for you.
I'm here to tell the tale, that's all.
Right, okay. Now, before we go, can you just tell us what these various buildings are behind us, Mike? Well, first of all, how do you feel standing there in front of us?
No problem. I've no problem with these people.
No problem with that?
No. I done my time, and
you don't get...
No.
Pollywobbles all over you.
No, I was well enough. I was tough enough for these guys. I wasn't, I got a few beatings, but I was well able to take it. Right. But this is the main building here. This is the main entrance. That's the main entrance to Daingean, where the office is. So you went in first.
Okay.
When I went down, I was handed over to the brothers. The policeman took the handcuffs off me after coming down from...
You went in that door?
That door, yeah. That was
in this gate and in that door?
And then I was brought into the office, and then he got me clothes and boot shoes and...
Give you a number.
Yeah, 23.
This building here to the right.
This is the recreation.
That's the recreation.
For the people come down every month. You're allowed a visitor once a month. Mm-hmm. You got a visitor, and you go into the hall, and that's where you sit them for 2 or 3 hours, and then you got the bus home. My mother got the bus home.
And over there would be the handball alleys in behind. The handball alleys
and the toilets, yeah. The handball and the toilets, and on the right-hand side, and that's the Berlin Wall. It's right around. This goes completely.
This is part of the Berlin Wall here, isn't it?
It's a circle, yeah. It's a whole circle.
And that's what the Berlin Wall. Why? Because it was, you couldn't get over it. Yeah.
And it's like you marched around it all the time. That's all we did was play handball in the alleys, and that's all we could do. Well, I was able. I didn't get much beat. I was able to defend myself. A lot of other kids didn't be able to.
The vulnerable ones that got it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very grim looking, Michael, and very austere and very remote. You're very remote here in the middle of the Bog of Allen, aren't you?
That's right, yeah.
And you said there was a chapel or church over there, was there?
Little church. No, the big main church is up on the top of the on
the top of that building there.
Yeah, but that was a small church there, and you go. The Legion of Mary used to come in there, and all.
The Legion of Mary, yeah.
Yeah,
why are you laughing?
No, but no, it's it's just a bit of a joke, really. The way the church, If
it wasn't so, it could be laughable if it wasn't so serious, Michael.
Indeed, yeah. But I mean, like, it's just to cover up as all that was the shame.
Mass in the morning was over there.
No, in the big church. In the big church, yeah, in the big church. That was just.
And what's that door over there, Michael?
That would be the bakery over there. The bakery. The bakery over there.
It's your tailor's shop.
At my tailor shop.
Where you worked.
Right. Looking at entrance there, right at the very back.
The back of it, the tailor shop. And you liked working in there.
Well, my kind was a very good man, but
and you got your cigarettes.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, he wasn't a bad man. Yeah, as I said.
And where was the farm? Behind that again?
Yeah, behind that on the right hand side of the square is the square is onto the right and over to the left is the farm. Where the small section was, you walk into the farm from that way. That gate was on the right hand side at the end of it.
And you did some farm work as well?
And the bog,
and the cow shed, out in the bog, yeah.
When Mike wasn't able, he didn't come in on Monday.
The bog was hard work, wasn't it?
Well, you didn't care. You were young. You were able to tough. You had to,
You were, but some boys weren't.
That's right. Yeah. But that's the way the things are. Yeah. But as I said, a lot of innocent kids were destroyed down here, really. And God forgive them, what they did to these people, I know. But not all people have the determination they had.
Michael, you've recovered from it greatly. You've really are.
Hopefully I've done.
Yeah. Like you can stand there and laugh, you know what I mean? You can see the irony of it all.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of kids, as I said, have died from going onto drugs and drinking.
And none of them, alcohol, drugs, and suicide.
Yes, indeed, and you can't.
You're the last one standing, you say?
Yeah, indeed, and my friends, yeah. But it's.
Oh my God.
Aye, well, that's the way it was, and it's.
Have you any bitterness? Do you feel bitter?
No, only with Brother Ferdinand. No bitterness here. What I did wrong, I maybe put it there, but I done my time, and I but the only man I never forgive in my life was Brother Ferdinand. I forgive other people.
But he started the whole thing off, didn't he?
Indeed, yeah, it was. Yeah.
Blotted your life from the very start and deprived you of all that.
Indeed, yeah, no skill, no writing, but I learned to cope and duck and dive, and I learned to.
You're amazing.
I did.
Michael, thank you very much for telling us all that.
Yeah, okay.
You are absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you all for watching. And until we meet again, slán go fóill agus beannacht.